here on the telephone, the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Dan Forest. Lieutenant Governor, thanks for joining me this morning.
Good morning, Tyler. Thanks for having me on again.
All right, well, I guess what was your reaction yesterday to the press conference with Eric Holder about the Department of Justice is going to sue our state over the new voter ID law?
Deja vu all over again. Here we go. How many states have been sued by our federal Department of Justice now because the Obama administration doesn't like something that they're doing? This is really runs right in the face of federalism in so many ways. It runs right in the face of the separation of powers at the federal level as well. You know as well as I do, Tyler, that just a few months ago, the Supreme Court struck down the very thing that they're trying to sue us for right now, saying that what we and other states are doing is within our constitutional authority to do it. And here comes the Obama administration through Eric Holder to try to prevent us from doing it.
And that's sort of the argument I've seen from a lot of legal scholars, is that it really looks like that's what the Department of Justice is doing, is they're saying, all right, well, we lost this fight through the Supreme Court, so what we're going to do is kind of find like a back doorway to continue the same policies as we've continued them. And it almost seems like they really missed the point of the Supreme Court ruling, which was, listen, you guys need to update these laws because they are, they're antiquated. It doesn't make any sense that you're saying, well, North Carolina is racist because look what they did 70 years ago. We're an entirely different state from when we were then. And to apply that logic is just, it's silly. If we did that with anything else, we'd be looked at as if we were insane. And yet the Department of Justice basically is saying as well, we really like that law. So even though they struck it down, we're going to kind of find a back way around it. And that's pretty much what they're doing here, right?
Certainly, and that's par for the course for this administration as well. This is what they've done again and again. That's why we have Obamacare right now, because of executive order in so many ways that they decided that they couldn't get this law pushed through the right way, that they were going to take it in their own hands to do it. So, this is par for the course. This is unfortunate because the law is a good law. It's been tried and tested in other states. It's gone through legal review in other states as well, and it gives a couple years here through to 2016 to go through that process, unfortunately, but the taxpayers are the ones that end up footing the bill. We have to pay for it at the state level to pay the lawyers to defend us here, and we have to pay for it at the federal level to pay for the lawyers to prosecute us. So we lose on both ends.
And, there's been a lot of chatter out there, and some people, of course, are concerned about the fact that, our Attorney General Roy Cooper, who is a Democrat, has stated some concerns that he has. Are you worried at all about maybe the possible problems that arise with a potential candidate for governor on the Democrat side who is supposed to be defending this law, and he actually has sort of an incentive to not defend the law entirely? Is that a concern of yours at all?
Well, it's certainly not an ideal situation, but the state, to get the triple whammy, I just mentioned we have to pay attorneys at the state and federal level. We're paying both sides, but we're also paying third-party attorneys at the state to help us defend ourselves because of that very thing. So, no, I'm not really worried too much about it. I think that the outside attorneys that we've hired will certainly do their job and make sure that we're protected. And I'm not really worried about the law at all. The law is fairly clear that there has to be some very clear understanding that something was done intentionally in this law to try to disenfranchise somebody or something of the like, and that just never happened. So I'm not worried about it being upheld. It's just going to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars once more.
Well, I just can't seem to figure out when the last, I hear accusations left and right. I know you hear them as well. Accusations of course, racism. This every time Republicans do something, it's because it was racism was behind it, and racism is still rampant nowadays. And yet, every time I see the Department of Justice civil rights portion of the Department of Justice get involved in something, I never see it end up ending in the way they think it is. It always ends up they completely blew it out of proportion. And as you pointed out, this isn't the first time they've done this. And you have to wonder how long they're going to be able to do this before they start losing just massive amounts of credibility all over this country. In the only one instance where you would have thought that it looked like there was direct voter suppression when we saw the Black Panthers standing outside of the polling place with billy clubs threatening people that were walking up there. They just said, oh, that's no big deal. But then every time we hear about all these phantom racist claims that are all over the country, and yet nothing ever seems to materialize.
Well, the tactics haven't changed really for 40 years for those folks, and so they keep it up. And at some level, it must work because they rally a certain level of base somewhere to get them excited about what's going on. But the claims really are unfounded. In North Carolina, our election laws are so antiquated. The changes hadn't been made for 30 years in our election laws, and the whole voter ID thing, some 80% of North Carolinians agree with it. The vast majority of states in the country have IDs to vote, and the shame of it is where people say we're disenfranchising voters by this. Though the truth is that we're making sure that everybody has an ID. To just participate in society in this day and age, everybody needs to have an ID. So we're actually doing all those voters who don't have one right now a favor. We're giving them the opportunity to get a free identification. We're giving them 2 years to do it. We're helping them get educated into the process of how to do that. And if you don't have an ID in America today, you really can't function in society. So we're really reaching out to a whole base of folks that may exist out there that the other side's saying exist and helping them out. So it's actually a good thing for them.
It's interesting that you bring that up because here we are on October the 1st, the first day of the Obamacare implementation with regards to the healthcare exchanges, and the arguments that we heard from this administration was that everyone should have health care because having health care is great. It's better that everyone has it. It's better for the system. It's better for people individually. And that's sort of the argument with the IDs. I mean, if it's good to have health care, having an ID is even better, in my opinion, because I don't understand how you even function in society. So if you're telling me that I have to have health care in order to just be standing here on this planet, I have to have health care, how can you say that making people have an ID, not just for being a North Carolina citizen? If you don't want to have an ID, you don't have to. But if you want to engage in the election process, yes, you have to have an ID, and we're going to pay for it for you. I just don't see how they're so opposite on both those kind of points of view.
Well, it's actually, they're self-defeating argument on the Obamacare side, because if you want to implement your Obamacare and you want to actually go to the doctor, you're going to have to show a form of ID to actually get treated when you're there to use your health care. So, yeah, absolutely. Everybody just needs an ID. This is basic stuff this day and age. And, the other components of this are good components as well. The taking away the straight party ticket voters, which makes people actually pay attention to every single person they're voting for. Hopefully, it makes them go down the ballot and actually vote for the nonpartisan races rather than just walking out and pulling an R or a D lever and walking out of the booth. It allows us to make sure that the people are who they say they are by getting rid of same-day processing for voter registration. There's a number of these things that are just good. They're sound election law, and that's what we're doing in North Carolina. There's nothing crazy going on here at all, and we just want to have the best election law we can in our state.
And I'm glad you brought up straight ticket voting because, as you pointed out, it does help people to at least be more informed when they go to the polls. But it doesn't make you, because there's still it's not like you're making all the election nonpartisan. There's still Democrat next to people's names. And so if they want to vote straight ticket, they can still do that. They just don't have to just fill in one bubble. So, I never really understood this argument that somehow getting rid of straight ticket voting, which we're like one of the only states that even had it, somehow restricts someone's ability to vote one party. You can still do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
That's right. And it makes the process a little more serious. And, I would say that probably the majority of people I meet with today say, I don't vote for the party, I vote for the candidate.
Yeah.
And I hear that about every single day, and this really allows people to vote for the candidate and stop voting for the party.
And before we run out of time here, I, of course, today is October 1st, and there's a bunch of laws being implemented in North Carolina. We're seeing a lot of laws that were passed in the General Assembly going forward. And I think that's what's, very interesting, because we're all talking about Obamacare, because that today the marketplace is open. But of course, there are so many laws in North Carolina. There's so much work that the General Assembly did, and we saw all of these laws being passed. Was there any law in particular that you were the biggest fan of?
Well, certainly the voter ID law. I think that is just basic to our fundamental rights as Americans. So that's up there at the top of the list. Obviously, as you know, I'm no fan of Obamacare, and so saying no to the state health care exchange, I think, was a big deal to our state. And we did a lot of things to get the House fiscally in order, which is, I think, a key responsibility of the legislature to do that. And we're making moves to do that rather than continuing to run North Carolina down the path of unfunded liabilities in our state.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy, and I know this issue. I think we both agree on this, that this Department of Justice sort of witch hunt is going to be just that, and North Carolina is going to end up prevailing. But unfortunately, it is going to cost the taxpayers money. But there's nothing we can do about that. But thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate you having me on. Have a great day.
Once again, that was Dan Forst, of course, Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, talking about the Department of Justice announcement that they're going to be suing us, North Carolinians. They're going to be suing us for the law that we recently just passed. Of course, that would be the voter ID law, which, by the way, has not been implemented yet. It won't be implemented until after the midterms. So it's not really a worry right now. We don't have to worry about it with regard to the laws and that voter ID law. Some of the other ones that I just talked about with the Lieutenant Governor, of course, some of the gun laws are getting passed now, and some of the other provisions that we passed during the General Assembly. Those are going into implementation today, but not the voter ID law. So you got to wonder what the Department of Justice all of a sudden jumped up about. We haven't even implemented it yet, and they're kind of freaking out about it. All right, we got to go to a break here. It is 8:19 on this Tuesday, October the 1st. If you want to give me a call, we're talking Obamacare, 910-763-4000. I'm Tyler Cralle. We'll be right back.
Clearly, you're all insane.
That is 100% true.
Tyler Cralle on 980 The Wave.